Hello to everyone, and welcome to the USW webinar on EI emergency benefits and the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. My name is Meg Gingrich, and I'm joined by two of my colleagues from the CNO Research Department, Gio Jacinto and Matthew O'Reilly. First, I want to say from all of us at the Canadian National Office that we hope that you and your loved ones are safe and hopefully staying sane during this crisis. This webinar is the first in a series of webinars the Canadian National Office will offer in order to assist staff during this difficult period. We'd also like to hear from you as to topics or areas of concern that we can prepare for future webinars. You can reach us with ideas at research@usw.ca, and we'll post that email address at the end of the webinar. So now on to today's webinar. I'm sure everyone's aware a number of support measures have been announced by the federal government as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. These include wage subsidies for employers, some tax-based benefits, and emergency benefits for workers. And today we're going to focus on the emergency benefits for workers. So there are two parallel benefits that we'll be discussing: the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, or the CERB, and the Employment Insurance Emergency Benefit. These two benefits will essentially supplant the EI system temporarily, with the exception of some special benefits like maternity, parental, and caregiver benefits, for example. The CERB and the EI emergency benefit are very similar, and Gio and Matthew will delve into the details of these emergency benefits for workers. I also want to say that the announcements from the government are coming in every day. Unions and others have highlighted numerous flaws with the emergency benefits for workers. So as a result, some of the information we're providing today could change. And in fact, on April 15th, the government announced several significant changes to eligibility for the benefits. Gio and Matthew will discuss these changes. Also, further changes could come in the future, and we'll continue to track any future announcements. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the question feature. Click on the white arrow in the red rectangle to expand out a variety of features. Then you can click on the arrow in the right-hand corner of the gray bar labeled questions, and this will give you a screen in which you can type your question. You then hit enter or click send. I'll be tracking any questions, and we will answer what we're able to at the end of the main presentation. And we'll also put those instructions up on a slide at the end of the presentation. After we've answered all the questions that have been submitted through that function, we will use any remaining time to open the mics and take live questions. To get on the speakers list, you can use the chat function and ask to be put on the speakers list. I'll unmute you one at a time to ask your questions. And finally, if there are any questions we're not immediately able to answer, we'll take notes and send out a question and answer sheet sometime after the webinar. So now for the main presentation. Gio will begin with an overview of the benefits, including details on eligibility. So over to you, Gio.
Great, thanks, Meg. So to clear the confusion, there are indeed two programs that will be operating side by side. We have the EI emergency benefit on the one hand, and the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, or CERB for short, on the other. Both programs have very similar eligibility criteria and benefits. And so it's important to note that for the time of the existence of the CERB and EI, so in other words, for the next 16 weeks at least, regular EI benefits and sickness benefits will be temporarily suspended. You could still apply for parental and compassionate care benefits, but anything COVID related will be through the EI emergency benefit. So you might be asking, why are there two programs? And the answer to that essentially seems to be that to divide the workload of processing claims. So for example, from March 15th to March 30th, EI received over 2.2 million applications, and within that 2-week period, 400,000 applications were processed. So presumably, if there are two entities processing claims, they can be dealt with more quickly and money placed in the hands of those who need it faster as well. So if you're funneled into EI, your claim is administered by Service Canada, and if you're funneled into the CERB, your claim is administered by the Canada Revenue Agency. On April 6th, applicants would have been directed to the CERB website. There they were asked a series of questions which would direct them to the proper stream. It appears to us that the funneling will largely be based and is largely based on whether or not you're originally eligible for EI. So if you were eligible, you would move into the EI emergency benefit. If you were not, you would be channeled into the CERB benefit. If you apply to EI after March 15th, your claim stays within the new EI emergency benefit, and your weekly benefit will be adjusted to reflect the CERB payment amount of about $500 a week. If you applied before March 15th, and your claim was either processed or still open after that date, you stay within the particular EI benefit that you applied for. So the eligibility criteria for the EI emergency benefit and the CERB are virtually identical. To be eligible for the EI emergency benefit or the CERB, you must have stopped working for reasons related to COVID-19, and the eligible reasons are the following. You're eligible if you were laid off or have been scheduled to not work or have reduced hours. You will not be eligible for benefits if you quit voluntarily. You are eligible if you're sick or in quarantine or self-isolation. You're eligible if you are off work caring for someone with COVID-19. You're eligible if you have to stay home because of schools or childcare centers have closed and you have to watch your children. You're eligible if you have earned at least $5,000 of insurable earnings in 2019 or in the 12 months prior to the date of your application. So this includes EI income from maternity and parental leave and or similar benefits paid in Quebec under the Quebec Parental Insurance Plan. You're eligible if you have stopped or will stop working for at least 14 consecutive days within the 4-week benefit period and have or expect to receive no more than $1,000 in combined employment or self-employment income for those consecutive days. So, and on a going forward basis, you're allowed to receive no more than $1,000 over the 4-week benefit period that you're applying for. So this is one of the new measures that was announced yesterday on April 15th, which essentially serves to expand the range of these emergency benefits and of those who are eligible. You also have to be a Canadian resident. And for the EI emergency benefit, you're not expected to look for work. So there is no job search requirement. Before the changes that were announced yesterday, for EI, you would have had to declare every 2 weeks that you have not and would not receive any employment income in the next 14 days. With CERB, you would have needed to make this declaration monthly. However, with the changes that are announced yesterday, it appears that you will have to attest that you will not receive more than $1,000 in income within the next month for both programs. Although it's not clear though if EI has also moved to this monthly reporting attestation format like the CERB or if it continues on a 2-week reporting period. And lastly, while you are on either the EI emergency benefit or the CERB, you're still allowed to receive pension income, scholarships, and or provincial income support related to COVID. On the issue of sub-plans or top-up plans in particular, this was an issue with the previous iteration of the CERB, since no income was allowed. With the measures announced yesterday, it appears, at least theoretically, that a payment of a sub-plan would be allowed. But we haven't confirmed this simply because the regulations aren't public yet. So we can't give you a definitive answer just yet. So we're waiting for that. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, the changes announced on April 15th expanded access to CERB and the EI emergency benefit. These changes are retroactive to March 15th. I already mentioned the ability of a person to earn up to $1,000 per month while collecting the CERB or the EI emergency benefit. So this allows workers who work part-time hours or have their hours reduced to be eligible for the benefit. The other measures include, and these were also announced yesterday, on April 15th, extending CERB to seasonal workers who have exhausted their EI regular benefits and are unable to undertake their regular seasonal work as a result of COVID. and the extending of the CERB to workers who have recently exhausted their EI regular benefits and are unable to find a job or return to work because of COVID-19. And just to be clear, in the last two examples, it does appear that you will be funneled into the CERB channel and not into the EI emergency benefit. Back to you, Meg.
Okay, thanks for that, Gio. So now we'll go over to Matthew. Matthew, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Hope my sound's okay. So the benefits. The benefit is the same amount whether you receive the EI emergency benefit or the CERB. So that's $2,000 a month for up to 4 months or 16 weeks. These benefits are taxable, but they're not taxed at the source. So for the CERB, you get a monthly one payment of $2,000. The EI emergency benefit will be paid every 2 weeks. I do want to note here that the EI emergency benefit is the same benefit for everyone, $500 a week. Under normal EI, you could have received more or less than $500, but under this EI emergency benefit, you will receive $500 a week for a total of $2,000 a month. You cannot receive the CERB and the EI emergency benefit at the same time. You're supposed to apply for one, and they're kind of the same program, but administered through different agencies. If you had established an EI claim before March 15th, your benefits continue under the normal EI rules. But if those regular EI benefits expire before the end of this special period, well, then you will be able to apply for the EI emergency benefit or the CERB. If you receive the EI emergency benefit or the CERB and you are still unemployed at the end of your 16-week period, then you can receive EI regular benefits, provided you are eligible under the normal rules. So receiving the EI emergency benefit or the CERB now will not diminish your eligibility for regular EI benefits in the future. As far as the administration of these benefits, the EI emergency benefit is administered through Service Canada, and the CERB is administered through the CRA. While you're on the benefits, you will have to regularly attest or declare that you do not have any income or you did not make more than $1,000 during a benefit period. We're still waiting for some clarification about that. And we're told you can make this declaration using a simple online form. And this online attestation is the only monitoring mechanism in place. There is no job search requirement, and there won't be any interviews. They're trying to automate the delivery of this benefit as much as possible. And the period covered by the EI emergency or the CERB benefits is March 15th to October 3rd. So you can get compensation for income lost during that period, and you'll have until December 2nd to do the paperwork. So here, we just wanted to show you the main landing page on the government's website. This is how applicants are being directed to either the EI benefit or the CERB. If you go to canada.ca/coronavirus and then click on the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, which is circled in red in this image, you'll be pushed to this next page here, which has the eligibility criteria for the benefits and a statement about how the benefits are delivered jointly by EI and the CRA. Now at the bottom of this page, there'll be a series of questions. You'll be asked about your main source of income in the past year. If you answer self-employed, it will tell you to apply to the CERB through the CRA. Now, for people who are funneled towards the CRA, because of the high level of applicants, the CRA is now restricting applications to one day of the week based on your birth month. So people born in January, February, and March can apply on Mondays. Other months of the year have different days of the week. Next slide. So as we saw, if you were self-employed, you would be funneled to the CRA. If you answer that you're an employee, you will then be asked if you're full-time or part-time. And if you're part-time, it asks how many months you worked last year. So basically, full-time employees and part-time employees with 8 or more months of employment will be directed to the EI emergency benefit, while part-time employees with less than 8 months of work will be directed to the CERB. So this is how applicants will end up in either the EI emergency benefit or the CERB. Though I do want to mention that the government is adopting a no wrong door approach. So it doesn't really matter which stream you're in. You won't be disqualified or anything if you're receiving the CERB through the CRA but you're a full-time employee. And with that, I'll pass it back to Meg.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. So that covers the main components of the CERB and the EI emergency benefit. And before we get to the questions, there's just one more thing that I want to make staff reps and everybody who's listening aware of. And that's that we've heard about some scams going around from some members who have applied for these benefits. It might not be related to them applying to it, but people have been receiving texts allegedly from the government asking them to click on a link in order to get their money or to send in their social insurance number in order to process their EI or CERB claim. And so we just want to make sure that our members are aware that these are going around and that the actual government would not send out a text message asking for that information.